What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Season 11 of Apex Legends is finally here, and with it comes a whole host of new content. And since you guys liked the last few tier lists that I did, scope the videos up above and in the description if you haven't seen them. I am back with your definitive weapons tier list for Season 11. As always, before we get started, if you enjoyed this content, let me know down below, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to know when these videos go up, or when my live streams start, be sure to hit that notification bell. But without further ado, I am Brad from Last Call Gaming. Let's tap into it. So as always, these are my opinion, and you are free to disagree with me. If for some reason you simp the P2020 and think I rated it too low, you are free to let me know in the comments. Just all I ask is that you please keep it classy. So there's nothing crazy about this tier list, your standard S through F categories, but you'll be happy to know that the gun balance of the game feels really, really good right now. As such, a lot of these tiers are a lot closer than they may seem. So let's dive right into it with the 30-30 repeater. The 30-30 hasn't seen really any significant changes going into Season 11. The addition of the dual load hop-up means you can now reload faster, which is actually a significant buff to the gun. With the other hop-ups it can use, it can be a very nice sleeper pick. However, stock out of the gate, it really suffers, and I find it relatively inconsistent, and for that reason, it's gonna start us off in B tier. The Care Package Alternator. This thing is a terrifying care package weapon, and I love it. It is quite literally a laser beam, and that has not changed since it went into the care package in Season 10. There's not a lot to say about this. If you find it, you pick it up, and for that reason, S tier. The Bow Check Bow. This one's kind of tough for me because I personally am a big fan of the Bow Check Bow, but I know that a lot of people really don't like it and have a lot of trouble with it. And while I personally have a lot of success using it and consider it a sleeper pick, user experience does not determine this tier list, and so I have to put it also in B tier. The brand new Car SMG, my Titanfall baby, my sweet summer child. Respawn did a phenomenal job launching this weapon. It is strong, but it's not overpowered by any means. I like to think of it as a better R99 because it fills a similar role. With the added versatility of being able to swap ammo types, you are never in the wrong for picking this up. I've been fortunate enough to find a lot of these and have a lot of playtest time with it. So in my experience, it's been very enjoyable, very consistent. It suffers a little bit mid to long range, but it's an excellent primary weapon and pairs well with a lot of other things. And for that reason, the Car SMG launches in S tier. The Charge Rifle. I have changed my opinion significantly about this because I've spent a lot more time with it just because, and I've been on the receiving end of it way too many times. As far as the sniper category is concerned, I don't think you can go wrong picking this up. I think there are better options out there, but the Charge Rifle does have one bit of added versatility that brings it up in my opinion. The Charge Rifle is the type of sniper rifle that you can hip fire at a very close range if you're in a bind and you need to dish out some quick burst damage. Never mind its perfect hit scan from infinite range. The Charge Rifle is a good pick in my opinion, and for that reason, the Charge Rifle is our first entry into the A category. The Devotion LMG. Not a lot has changed about the Devotion in my opinion, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. In the current meta, the Devotion's B tier solidly, stock on the ground with nothing. If you find it with a turbocharger, it's S tier, keep it for the rest of the game, you really can't go wrong with it. Its major fault is that it's unwieldy at times. And for new players, that could be a bit of a surprise. Anyone who's played this game for a long period of time knows it's a fine weapon. For that reason, B tier. The EVA 8 shotgun got a huge nerf this season. Rate of fire went from 2.1 rounds per second to 2. Feels bad, man. In all seriousness, the nerf was completely negligible. I barely even noticed the difference. The EVA still dominates. It's still top of the shotgun food chain. And for that reason, it's still S tier. The Flatline. I don't need to mince words here. The Flatline is probably the best ground weapon in the game currently. I would even go so far as to say it's a good candidate for the care package next season. While it has more recoil than the R301, its time to kill is still one of the lowest in the game. Statistically, it outperforms almost every other weapon on this list consistently. Combined with a very solid hipfire at close range, this is a weapon you're gonna wanna pick up and learn how to control. And learning to control it isn't that hard at all. It was top tier last season, it's top tier this season. The Flatline is S tier. The Care Package G7 Scout. The newest entry to the Care Package, the G7 is much more terrifying than it was last season. It comes fully spec'd with double tap, a 2x4 scope, a very solid reload time, and a barrel stabilizer. And this thing hits like a train. The updated numbers bring it way up in my opinion. And having been able to pick a few fights with it, it's definitely a solid entry into the care package. Things very solid and you can't go wrong picking it up. The Care Package G7 Scout is S tier. The Havoc. The Havoc's another one that's kind of a sleeper pick, I think. But again, user experience does not exactly define the weapon. I've had some luck with it personally. I've also had some moments that weren't so great. The initial rev up can be jarring in certain circumstances, and honestly can be the difference between winning and losing a gunfight. With a turbocharger, it's a very good weapon, and it's generally speaking quite solid, but I just can't shake the inconsistency of it, and for that reason, I have to put the Havoc in B tier. The Hemlock. Hemlock recently received a handful of buffs, largely to control its hipfire spread, which was abysmal. While this didn't bring it back entirely into the meta, it has made it significantly more consistent and much less of a liability to land on. And while it's not my first choice, it's another one that you can't really go wrong with. It is, however, quite playstyle dependent and still thrives at medium to longer ranges. And for that reason, I'm gonna put the Hemlock in A tier. The Kraber, the gift from the gods. Now, in my last tier list video, which I've linked up above, I gave the Kraber its own tier list. Now, you might think I can't do that bit every single time, but you'd be wrong. Kraber gets its own tier above everything else, end of story. It's the most broken gun in the game, I don't know what to tell you. There's a reason it's in the care package and a reason it can never leave. The ability to one-shot someone in the most satisfying way possible is unmatched. And realistically, who doesn't do a little dance anytime they open the care package and find this beauty here? It's like literally the only reason anyone pushes a care package. A weapon with the ability to do that deserves its own tier every single time, and therefore, Kraber tier. The DMR was buffed, now it's nerfed again. This one is quite literally hit or miss for me, but I have been picking it up more often than not these days. Its rate of fire is fantastic, its ammo capacity is great. To me, it's a better G7 Scout pre-care package, and provided you can manage the bullet velocity, which always feels weird to me, but maybe that's just a me thing, you can't go wrong picking this up. Very solid choice. If you kit it out, you're gonna be in good shape. DMR, A tier. The L-Star. Depending on who you ask, the L-Star was broken last season. And in my opinion, it was very, very strong. The series of buffs that it received brought it into the meta in a way that nobody really expected. And it was nice to see it up there for a while because it's a gun I genuinely like. It was nerfed at the beginning of this season to bring it more in line. And generally speaking, all of the nerfs feel fine. The damage nerf is negligible. It just takes a few more shots to kill this time. And the projectile size nerf is actually a soft buff because it makes the VFX of the impact significantly less dramatic, making it actually easier to see where your shots are going. And that was always my biggest problem with the weapon. And so it just feels better this season. And honestly, I think it's still top tier. It's not the best gun in the game, but I pick this up all the time. It's a damage farm, and for that reason, it's S tier. The Mastiff. This thing needs help. Ever since they nerfed it into the ground back in, I think, season 8, it has felt terrible. And the biggest issue is with its spread pattern, which is a straight line, meaning unless you are right in front of the person, you are not gonna hit all of those pellets. It is so mind-blowingly inconsistent. And with the addition of the new hop-up, I mean, you can load it faster, but that doesn't make up for the fact that most of the time you're gonna be hitting 11s. The Mastiff just does not feel good right now, and I'm really hoping Respawn gives it a little bit of help. A lot of people are gonna disagree with me on this. I don't really care. The Mastiff is F tier. Fix this trash. It's not good. Mozambique, yeah. The Mozam is a sleeper pick. It's one of the best shotguns in the game right now. Statistically, by the numbers, it has a better time to kill than the Mastiff and the PK, which is nuts when you think about it. It's in such a good spot right now that I'm actually usually happy to see it on drop because it means at the very least I have a fighting chance. Heck, it's so good that I've even taken a fully kitted one into endgame situations just to see what would happen and have won the game. I know the stigma still exists about the Mozam, but it feels really good right now. And so for that reason, it's going into A tier. The P2020, there's not a lot to say about this. It's okay, it's not good. I think it would be fair if they gave everyone a P2020 on drop and just took it out of the loot pool. This is another one that always feels bad to land on, and it's not something you're ever gonna take past the first fight if you can avoid it. That being said, I would rather have this than the Mastiff every single time. I have wiped a squad with only a P2020. I have never done that with a Mastiff. And I know I said personal experience doesn't impact the tier list, but that has happened to me so many more times than it should have that I have to put it a tier above the Mastiff. It's still not good. You're better off with literally everything else on this list so far. But I said what I said. Don't at me, or do, whatever. Moving on to the Peacekeeper. This one's tough for me because it's another one. I like the Peacekeeper, but the Peacekeeper is still not in a great spot. They did buff it this season, and that has helped it actually a little bit, but its time to kill still isn't great, and it is still technically outclassed by the Mozam and the Eva. It's a very satisfying shotgun to use, especially when you do full damage hits, but it suffers from two of the same issues that the Mastiff does. While its spread is substantially better, its rate of fire is so slow and its reload is so slow that as a secondary, you could do better with a lot of other things on this list. If you like the PK, I'm not gonna fault you for it. I like the PK. I would like to see it higher on this list, but it is a hard gun for them to balance, and I think this is gonna be our first entry into C tier. The Prowler. This is a gun with virtually no recoil, but it suffers from a similar problem that the R9 has that I'll get to in a minute, where it really needs attachments in order to be good consistently. The Prowler's weaknesses ironically come from where its strengths lie. Its stock magazine size combined with the number of bullets per burst mean that you really need to get a magazine on this thing as quickly as possible to avoid having to reload in the middle middle of a fight. It's a very strong weapon. Do not get me wrong. Thing absolutely melts, provided you can beam every single one of your trigger pulls. But what's broken on paper is not always great in practical use. And when you're fighting a lot of moving targets, this thing can fail you at times when you really need it not to. And for that reason, it's good, but it's not S tier. I'm putting it in A tier. The R301 is still the bread and butter. If you're a new player, this will reward you. If you're an old player, it will reward you. I love this gun. I know some people consider it a crutch. I don't really care. One of these guns needs to exist in every first-person shooter. One that is easy to control and will always be consistent no matter what you do. Do I choose the Flatline and the L-Star over the 301 more frequently these days? Absolutely. But the 301 is a gun that I'm always happy to see. Like I said, it's the gun that you take home to meet your parents. Its weaknesses lie in its stock magazine, mixed with its actual damage numbers. But its reload speed more than makes up for it, and most of the time you will still win the 1v1. Not a lot has changed with this thing, and I've gotta put the R301 in S tier. The R99, in the existence of the car, is not irrelevant, but I cannot think of a time where you should pick up the R99 over the car. The recoil is significantly harder to control than the car, meaning its resource management is much less efficient. Pair that with the fact that the car can swap ammo types, the R9, which fills a similar role, takes a step back, in my opinion. It's still a good weapon, and you're never gonna be wrong for picking it up. Just know that you have a better option available. In a world where the car exists, I have to put the R9 in A tier. The Rampage LMG. Folks, we need to have a talk about this weapon. I'm very tired of watching videos complaining about how this gun is broken when the people who are usually in these videos are standing still, just absorbing LMG shots. The Rampage is one of the easiest guns to outplay in the game. Does it hit like a train? Absolutely. But its rate of fire, even when it's charged, is so slow. If you're caught out for more than a handful of seconds, it's on you for dying to this thing. The time to kill on this gun is not fast. It loses the 1v1 to almost every other automatic weapon in this game, unless your enemy is standing still. Not to mention, it's a total resource drain. You need to be carrying grenades. You need to be carrying a lot of ammo. It's just not great. It's fine, but it's not a broken mess by any means. The Rampage is just average, and for that reason, it's C tier. The Re. I don't have a lot to say about the Re. This is another one that I will never carry into the end game if I can avoid it. It'll serve you well in a pinch, but I think it's honestly a little overrated. Not much more to it. I'll pick it up, but I won't keep it. The Re is C tier. The Sentinel. The Sentinel, not a lot to say about it either. It's strong. Charge it up, it's really strong. Hit your shots, it's basically as good as a Kraber, but it is slow and requires a much slower playstyle. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just good. It's not broken, just good. Sentinel, A tier. The Spitfire. I've actually changed my tune about the Spitfire as of lately. Comparatively to the other care package weapons, it's just not as scary. It's good, but having played it while it was on the ground in the form that it's currently in, it just doesn't terrify me like the alternator does, or the Kraber, or now even the G7. Like, it's fine. You're never in the wrong for picking this up, especially because it allows you to free up other inventory slots. It's just not as scary as the other care package weapons right now, and so I've gotta put it actually in A tier. Next, we have the triple take. Back on the ground loot pool for season 11, and I honestly think that was a very, very good choice. Now that it's recategorized as a marksman weapon and takes energy ammo, I think this thing really hit its stride. It's still got a great shotgun spread. It feels really good right now. Maybe that's just me, but I picked this up the other day, and it hit, it was clean, it was satisfying to use, and there's not a whole lot to be said about it. I'm glad that it's back on the ground loot because it just wasn't scary in the care package. Now, because it's readily available, you don't necessarily want to be on the receiving end of it. It's very capable, it's very versatile, and while I can't put it in S tier, this is another one, like, I'm really happy to find it. So we're gonna put it in A tier. The Volt. In a world where the L-Star is now good, the Volt seems like a worse pick, but honestly, I think this is just a preference thing. The Volt is still strong. Up close, especially, the Volt still melts. Comparatively, I would say that the Volt is actually more specific than the L-Star, and so therefore is more playstyle specific. It's still really strong, the numbers are still good, and its recoil is easy to control. Not much to be said about it. Because it's more specific, I think I have to leave it in A tier, but understand that it is very close to an S tier weapon in my opinion. And finally, we have the Wingman. This one's pretty black and white. If you hit your shots, it's S tier. If you miss your shots, it's F tier. It's super strong. It has a very, very high skill ceiling and an actually relatively high skill floor. While I would not recommend picking this up as a new player, it is a weapon you should familiarize yourself with over time, and eventually it'll be really fun for you to use. Its numbers are insane. Boosted loader makes it freaking awesome. I take it into endgame at least a handful of times on stream. It doesn't change. The Wingman is S tier. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of these tiers are a lot closer than I make them seem, and the gun balance is genuinely very good right now, so that's why the chart seems very top heavy. But that's the definitive season 11 weapon tier list. Once again, you're welcome to disagree with my opinions, but please keep it classy in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, cheers, legends.